Hello, everyone, and SOM fans across the world. This is Scotty B here at the SOM studios in East Tennessee. Been a little while since we've had a guest on, had a lot going at SOM, as I'm sure you guys have been paying attention to. But we've got a great guest for you tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit, maybe a little bit about his personal life, but a whole lot about his ring experience. Which we're really excited to have him on board. So please welcome my guest, Blade Gibson.
What is going on, SOM? How you all doing? I am yours truly, the face perfection, Blake Gibson.
You know, Blade, it's really kind of fun. If you look at us next to each other, you're small. Or I'm large. I'm not sure, but even if I sit back, dude, you look like an infant. So let's tie that into your wrestling. How often do you think people underestimate you because you are small?
Every single time I step in there. I wish I could say I'm kidding. Like, oh, some people take me seriously. No, literally, every single person I step in the ring with typically underestimates me because of my size. I've been trying my hardest to get on, weight gainer and all that stuff, mass gainer. Try to
legally, not roids. We don't.
Yeah,
no.
Not roids,
Okay.
not roids. I don't do that stuff. I don't need to do that stuff. I want to get. If I want to get big and make it somewhere, I want to do that with the long,
The right way.
hard.
Yeah, it's the hard way.
Not that cheap way.
So let's talk about that. Prior to people underestimating you and seeing, because you don't really look tiny in the ring. Cameras do wonders, right? But outside the ring, if people meet you, they see you kind of small. Before we get a little further into that, when did you start training in pro wrestling?
So I started training when I moved back up here in 2020 because I was originally living in Florida for 5 years, but then my dad passed away. Some stuff happened with my family, and eventually we had the house sold out from underneath us. So we had to move back up here. And the big motivation for me to want to actually take wrestling as seriously as I have is the fact of when I was looking at my dad in his casket, I promised him two things. One, that I'd be a wrestler, and two, whatever company I step foot into, I'd become a champion. And I'd do it for him. Make my own legacy and continue to carry on his legacy.
So let's talk about legacy and family. Now, I've known you for a little while here, and I know a lot of your family. But your dad and your mom were both wrestlers.
Both trained by the Rock and Roll Express.
By Ricky and Robert. And now they've been doing it for quite a while. And I know your mom still does some things with different productions and groups, and she's in here with us a lot. So tell me, let's go back to your dad. Since you've told everyone that he is gone, what kind of memories do you have of your dad wrestling and that whole lifestyle? Because it's so different.
Always going out places. Like, one of the things I've enjoyed most about wrestling is being able to travel, go out on the road, see all these different things. Because the way my dad was very fond, when he stepped foot in a company, he gained everybody's respect fairly quickly. And I remember being little and just seeing my dad go out there. I would always be so proud, whether he was a bad guy, whether he was a good guy, I would always be so proud to be like, hey, that's my dad. That's him in the ring beating up whoever that guy is. Whoever that guy is beating up my dad. I hate that guy. One of the memories that I can remember very distinctly is my dad was in a cage match. I can't remember for the life of me who it was against, but I remember him being in a cage match, and he got thrown up against the cage and was down for a little bit. The guy was running his mouth. My dad turns over, and he's just gushing of blood. I remember this gushing of blood, and he's just sitting there crawling up. I'm like, my dad's going to die.
So did you understand at that point that a lot of times they made themselves bleed, or that was part of it?
At the time, I didn't. I was still very, even though I was going up in the business, I didn't understand the fact that, hey, this is all happening for a reason. They're all making this happen. I didn't understand the concept that this guy and this guy don't actually hate each other. But as a kid, any person as a kid, they're not going to sit there and be like, oh yeah, they're just playing a part. No, as
Well,
a kid,
and that's one thing I think a lot of us love about wrestling. Those of us in the business, it's the epitome of good versus evil, right? Everything we do is good versus evil, and occasionally some people cross over the line, but that turns into what we see on camera and in the ring. Now, your mom just walked into the studio here. So, what about your mom? What memories do you have? Did you get to see your mom in action some?
I actually got to see my mom in action a lot because she always used to wrestle around the whole Tri-Cities area with Rebecca Lynn, and those two are the main two women I remember ever seeing wrestle. They were always against each other. They had great chemistry. Every match they put on, I was always invested. Like even taking out the fact that my mom was a part of it, I was always invested in the match. They were always in strap matches, street fights, extreme rules. They always had some kind of stipulation after like 2 or 3 matches. But I enjoyed every match I saw my mom work. But as a kid, I saw her wrestle more than I saw her manage. Nowadays, I see her manage more than I see her wrestle.
So, and I know you and I have talked about this, but a lot of people out there may not know. Way back in my college days, I did some work in North Carolina with Italian Stallion. And those of you who are fans of NWA remember Italian Stallion and how much of a worker he was. That he would always go out there and do whatever was needed, and he put on one heck of a show every single time. So after I met you, your mom and I got to talking, and lo and behold, she had done some work with Stal before she moved, and they left North Carolina, and that's within a couple months. I was there. Now, this is back when your mom was younger than you are. You know, so I mean, it was before you were thought of. So, how long did both your parents? How long were they in the industry?
My dad got into it fairly young. I want to say he got it in his 20s. My mom, she was glued into it since she was a kid. She used to tell me that she told me stories about when her and her, I want to say, grandpa. Hopefully, I'm not getting that wrong. She's told me it multiple times. I feel bad for forgetting about it, but he'd always put on wrestling. She would never want to watch it, and then I forget what character it was, but she saw him come onto the screen, and just like that, she was glued into it. She wanted to become a wrestler, and the rest after that's pretty much history. So what? That's roughly.
Leave it to studio stuff, guys. Sorry, had to move the car.
That's roughly 30+ years if I'm getting that right with her being in the industry. Thank you and my dad both.
There's your mom right there. So, Mama, how long have you been in the industry?
30+.
31.
I was right. I was 30+. Just about 1 year.
Blade aged you 40 or 4 years. Sorry, not 40. All right. So, and your sister's over here too, and she's training now. You've got one brother in wrestling, and another one who is not.
Yes and no. So I have two older well, I technically have two older brothers from my mom's side. My dad had two different marriages. But I have two older brothers. I have my older brother.
But your dad saved the best for last.
Obviously.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I have my older brother Chance, who's a year and some odd months older than me, and then I have my oldest brother Austin, who's 7 to 6 years older than me. And he was in wrestling at one point, like around my age right now. So 17 to 19, he was wrestling. But it came to that point to where we moved, and he kind of faded out of that and went more into the MMA route. So he's more on the MMA circuit right now, trying to.
So what you're telling me is your family is a bunch of fighters.
And that goes from a long family line.
Just making sure.
From my dad and my mom's side, both.
All right, so let's talk wrestling stuff here for a little while. Best opponent you've had to date? Any promotion, doesn't matter. Who have you faced that you're just like, wow, this was one hell of a match. I really enjoyed working with this person. Got to cover the logo on my drink. Not paying royalties.
If I have to be honest with it, it comes in a close tie with Draco and James Anthony because I feel like the James Anthony was who I stepped in the ring with first, and he's the one that made me really see him like, oh, I actually have something that this guy sees in me, and then I've capitalized on that since then, trying to improve, come to the Chucky Dome, train every time I can, improve my abilities, improve my in-ring work. And then the very first time I was here, my first match against James Anthony, and then my second match was against Draco. And I still go back and watch that match here and there. I feel like Draco is what really pushed me to realize, like, okay, this is definitely something I can.
Now, are you saying that because he's your trainer?
He wasn't my trainer at that time.
Okay. So
I'm saying like before I even came to SOM to start training.
Let's get the skinny here. What are the differences between James Anthony and Draco in the ring? I'm waiting for Draco to pop around the corner and just glare at us.
James is more of, all right, listen, James and Draco both have the similarity of, okay, what can you do? What can't you do? Draco's more of, okay, well, have you ever done this? Well, let's try this real quick. Okay, you got it? All right, we're going to do this in the match. James is, okay, if you're comfortable with this, can't do it, all right, we'll switch into something else. So James is more of, he wants to stick to what you can do so he can make you look good. And Draco is more of, I want you to do more things so you can look better than what you think you are.
Okay.
Give you that confidence.
That's good. So let's tie it back into where we started off. You're skinny.
Yeah.
You're a beanpole. You weigh about 30 pounds.
130.
Maybe. That's all bone.
Give or take.
All right, so we've talked before on this show and in general. Pro wrestling is not for the faint of heart. It's not backyard wrestling. It's not these little let's wrestle on in the grass or on a trampoline or on carpet. Those rings, we're looking right at one. They're tough. They're hard. And, if you're weighing $130, how does that feel taking those bumps on your body? Because, I've got some fat. I'm going to jiggle a little bit, and it might disperse the pain. You don't.
Straight bone.
So what does that feel like?
Sometimes it really depends on what the move I'm taking is. But the majority of the time, I just hit it. If just a little instant shock thing of pain. But it's nothing to where it's like, okay, it's just sitting there and I can't move and I can't finish the match. Mm-hmm. Now, I can't say the same for when I'm going against people that are not just outweigh me, but have major height on me. Because I recall one time I was in this heavyweight championship match, and I was going against a man that was 7 foot something. He's the heavyweight champion, 200 some odd pounds. And I was 125, 120. A little bit less than what I am now. And the finishing of that match was me pop up, powerbomb. That hurt.
Well, you're also coming from 7 foot in the air versus
which feels
5.
like you're jumping up to the roof of the ceiling and then getting dragged down.
Well, and here it is the ceiling.
Well, I'm saying for this one, you have a little bit more roof when I took it. But even then, still, it's like getting thrown up to the heavens and getting slammed down to the depths of hell. So yeah, it stings. It hurts. I go to work the next day after a Sunday and be like, I don't want to go to work, but I need to do the money. This is what I signed up for. This is what we all signed up for. We can't sit here and not take our responsibilities.
So, worst move to take. The most painful to you, the one you despise taking.
Germans.
Yeah?
I've come to realize it's Germans because with me being as light as I am and the way some people do their Germans, they'll let go of me and not realize that I'm not just going to land a few feet ahead of them.
Well, because you're a rocket at that point.
Yes.
You're just gone.
Well, I'm up to this point, and they let go. I'm getting sent most likely halfway across.
And that momentum, because the gravity and the force they're using to pick you up, and yeah, you're helping them go, but you're light. And once you're airborne, you're just going to keep going.
It's fate.
Speaking of airborne and those things, I want to take you back to July. I want to take us to Monsters at the Midway at the Greenville County Fair. It was a fatal four-way match. It was you, Evan Golden, Jackson Black, and Victor Andrews. There was one spot. We love it because we got pictures of it, and it looks painful. But literally, Vic has got all three of you in more or less a tower, and takes all three of you out of the turnbuckles and the top turnbuckle, and you're on the top of that. So, because it was Vic, Jackson, Evan, and then you. So tell me about, first of all, planning that spot, and then more importantly, how it went down and what it did to your body.
Okay. So
if you haven't seen it, you need to be a member here, and you can see Monsters on the Midway. Worth it. I mean, some of the best matches I've seen in a long time, including this one.
You're definitely going to want to see that spot, because when I'm about to describe it, you're going to be like, oh, that sounds painful. Let me go watch it. So,
it's painful for me, and I was like 300 feet from here.
We were all sitting, so I'm got my nerves wrapped because the way I'm looking at the setup of Monster of No Way, it felt like a WrestleMania to me. Because the way the Tron was, the way the entrance was, the crowd, it just felt like a WrestleMania moment for me. But we're all sitting in the back, we're all discussing how we're supposed to get to this Tower of Doom spot. And we got up to the point where, obviously, me being the lightest, I had to be on top, which I've taken it here, but roof kind of stops me from having to take the full altitude of it. So we had it to where it was going to be me, then Evan, and then we didn't know how we were going to set up the Victor and Jackson spot. But Victor came up with it for him to go up for a power bomb, grab him, German, yada, yada, yada. So when I got up for it, at first, Jackson came up to get Evan for a power bomb, and he had me, and Evan was about to go. And I was like, hey, wait a minute, whoa. Too quick. We're missing a spot. We're missing a guy. He's like, oh, crap. So when he got him set up, I felt him come. Victor goes, ready? I was like, ready. I jumped up with everything I had. It felt like a whole 2 minutes of me being up there. It felt like a whole eternity of me being up there. But I just remember when I hit, I pounced up as quick as possible because that was the most painful suplex I've taken by far.
So I looked at the math and did some of the distances, okay? You were a little over 10 feet in the air.
That explains the impact.
I'm just saying, you were up there.
But the thing was, I was 10 feet in the air from one side of the ring, and I literally went all the way across the other side of the ring.
Yeah, you were on the other end.
That whole 10 foot, and I landed on the opposite side.
And even in that moment, it had this slow motion kind of effect. Because, I was up there near the booth and everything, and Ricky and I were watching, and I watched this. I'm not going to tell you what Ricky said to me during that.
I'm scared to know what he said.
It was a lot of curse words, like, holy. But as we were watching that, as we were watching that, it felt really slow motion. And I don't know if you've ever watched NASCAR, but I know last year, I think, might have been 2 years ago, Martinsville, we were there, and Ross Chastain ended up hitting the wall, literally on purpose, and slingshot himself around to pass a whole bunch of people to keep going to the playoffs. It was awesome. But literally in that moment, you saw his car speeding right by our faces because we were right in the corner, and everybody else slowed down. And in that moment, it was similar to me because I saw Vic at full speed, normal speed, pulling y'all down. But with you up there on top, it felt like, a tree just got chopped down and it hadn't quite, and it took forever. And I was like, is he dead? I mean, that's literally like, did he die? Because you're, 10 pounds. So.
Victor was going, that's when Victor started going for those pins. I just rolled over to the side. Luckily I didn't have another spot until the finish. So I wasn't really me selling. I was like, okay, even though I breathed out, I can't breathe, my back hurts, that stung.
So how long did it hurt? How many days?
That's a good question. I gotta think about that.
Because I know it was more than that night.
It was. I say at least 3 days because even afterwards because prior to that when we were coming to training I took a German suplex. My lower back was hurting, and it just so happened to be when I landed flat back, so all my back got it. But I remember getting out of bed the next day and I was like, just moving to get up and move out of my bed was just a tassel. At least 3 days worth of pain. I work at a lumber yard, so then like the whole side motion of twisting my body, which is
I wanted to ask that. How do you work at a lumber yard when the lumber is bigger than you?
Assistance. So
he operates a crane and sits on his butt.
No, not like that. So where I'm stationed at, I'll usually have somebody, if the board's at a certain width and we gotta cut it, they'll cut it and I'll be at one end, they'll pick it up and move it. If they're not there, I sit there and put it on the thing I need to and kind of like push down and just like navigate it. So I find ways to work around it. But the only part where I actually legitimately have to use muscle, the little bit of muscle I have, is when I'm peeling the lumber off the log. That's typically literally at the front of it. So when those pieces come off, I have to get it exactly in the middle and pull. Because then if it falls down, it lands on me and then I have to sit there and push it.
So we've talked about painful moves. What's your favorite move to take?
Favorite?
To take, not give.
Take.
When you're going to take a bump, what's the bump you love to take? Whether it's because you're selling it good or you just like everything about it.
That's a toughie, honestly. I say a normal just a normal standing suplex, or just a simple clothesline. Like those move because just bounce off. Oh, okay, and then usually after that it either goes into a pin or we can just easily work into something because headlock. There's a lot of things you can do after you pump off from the clothesline. But if I had to go a little bit extraordinary for a move that I typically have to take, there's a lot of moves out there too. I think a DDT would be one, just because I don't like the idea of taking a DDT, sit there, hit, and then roll over. I like the fact of hitting, roll through, sell my head, and then lay back.
Right.
I like the crowd to get the reaction, they see my face for a split second. I just drop down and over.
A lot of guys will do that. They'll take it and they'll just hide it.
Exactly.
And it's like, you've got to show the pain here, guys. We're macho soap opera stars that fight. I don't know. What's your favorite move to give? What do you love performing?
I guess saying my finisher would be a little biased. But
I mean, that's fair.
I just feel like giving my whole comeback sequence with the Miz line, slip out, NZ, jump in, crossbody, just because it's also fluent. And usually when it's a comeback, so usually right when I land on that crossbody, I just go straight for a pin. But if I was going to go outside of being that kind of guy, I guess it would be an arm drag, because I always get so many I got compliments from Ricky, I got compliments from trying to think of other people. I got compliments from Boogie Woogie. I got compliments from a lot of guys about my arm drags, just because I get those Ricky Steamboat ones. So I drop down. It's just them mainly taking their own kind of.
And that's something you're talking about too that I want to point out: the fluidity of these moves. Whether it's an arm drag or you're doing your Miz lines and your whole sequence there, being able to make them look seamless and really have that smooth effect, that really helps tell a story versus just some random move out of nowhere.
But that's the thing.
So I love it.
But in order for me to be able to make those moves look as smooth as I try to do, gotta come and train.
Well, you do, and that's part of it. As we kind of get to the end of this, I'm going to hit you with some random questions.
All
right?
That's it.
So, yeah, random. The first one, we're going to go ahead and disappoint all the ladies out there. Are you single? No. Sorry, ladies. He has a lady friend. No, we're not going to tell you who it is or anything about her because she does not want hate mail. But he is not single. So sorry. Go stalk someone else. So let's start off with the next one. True or false? You have your driver's license.
False.
False.
I'm
Mr. Gibson is not a driver right now, which really cracks me up. I'm just saying, y'all.
And there's some people older than me that don't even.
That's fair. I don't. See, it's Tennessee, though. I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's see another one. Wrestler today. Anyone currently living that you want to wrestle? Just one. Just one.
I would have to go with Shinsuke Nakamura.
Why Shinsuke?
Just the way he does his music, the way he carries the atmosphere with him, even with his current heel work, it's just the way his aura, the way he comes into the ring, the way he sits there and sizes up his opponents. I love his style of wrestling.
Do you think that comes from a lot of the New Japan, and just because they're very different from what we do over here in the States? So their characters, because if you look at him and you look at Asuka, you look back at Great Muta, Jushin Thunder Liger, they all have this mystique about them that a lot of the guys here from the States don't. Do you think that might be part of the reason they're just trained different?
I feel like that is a major reason because, like, when New Japan puts you through the ringer, I feel like if you really want to test yourself in cardio and if you can really go in the ring, New Japan is the place to go because every single match you see in there, you're not going to see somebody, 30 seconds, they just got jobbed out. No, you're going to see a good match, and you're going to go for you're going to get your money's worth. So I feel like New Japan is their training style is a very big reason for that. I saw a clip yesterday that really proved that because most people sit here and bash Hulk Hogan for his basic moves here in the States. But I saw a clip yesterday of him in Japan, and he was, legitimately wrestling this man.
People also need to keep in mind when in this case, Vince, he's booking you for your size and a few simple moves because that's what he's selling you as this big brute that can kill you with a leg drop. You and I know, that's not happening. I mean, maybe Bundy or Andre, if they hit you with one, fine.
That's believable.
Bam Bam Bigelow, maybe, but Earthquake, but not Hogan. Not them. But when he was in Japan and even some of his matches in AWA, completely different from what we saw under Vince. A lot of that has to do with storytelling and booking anyway. Let's go to the next one real quick. I know you're going to have to be careful with this, but we're just talking like it is. Wrestler out there today who you do not respect. Is this the career killer before it starts?
There's a lot.
But maybe it's by character work. Maybe it's because of what they're doing or how they're booked.
I don't even know.
Or it could be the shoot stories you hear.
So I'm gonna give you two different type of answers. I'm gonna give you an indie answer, and I'm gonna give you a main stage answer. So if we're gonna go off the indies around the Tri-Cities, I'm gonna go off of somebody that I worked a year ago or so, and he wrestled by the name Drew McCracken. And the first match I had with him was a triple threat, and he was actually I thought he was actually decent. The match looked fluent. The crowd was into it. We told a story. I thought we did something good. We wrestled him again the very next day because we wrestled Friday and then we wrestled Saturday somewhere else. We wrestled him in a handicap match, and everything that was good about him just out the window. No, he didn't want to work with us. He didn't want to take certain moves like he was offering the day before. He was being complicated to work. He just wanted to have all the shine to himself. And then I wasn't around when he said this comment, but there came a time to reverse him again in a triple threat match. This time I went over, but he didn't take the pin because he went around and said that me and the guy that he was going up against weren't good enough to pin him. When granted, he's been doing this for 15 plus years, But when everybody else in the locker room that you're booked for is sitting there saying that you're not doing that great, and you come into my hometown and they say that you're not doing great,
Right.
kind of an insult to injury, especially when I'm just starting. You can't sit there and say I'm not good enough to pin me.
Right.
Anyone can pin anyone. It's not your choice. It's what the promoter decided.
It's predetermined.
And are you going to argue with the booker? I mean, if Vince McMahon were to call me right now and say, hey, you're going to go out here and you're going to get absolutely annihilated by Roman Reigns.
Fine.
I'm not. Why would I sit there and argue?
You're paying me $100? Great, let's do it. I mean, I'm just saying.
Even go off SOM, for example. Say I got told to come out here and you're going against RT3. You're going to hit
Hunter Wolf.
Hunter Wolf.
He's going to just kick you through the floor.
Start of the match, kicks me. Match is over. Okay. Why? I'm not going to sit here and say Hunter Wolf's not good enough to pin me. That's not how that works. I'm not going to sit here and say Santiago's not good enough to pin me. I'm not going to say somebody's not good enough to pin me. Everybody has their cons and faults. I see it as if I'm losing, I'm losing. Either make myself look good losing, or make myself look like an ass losing.
Right.
You have one or the other.
I'm going to give you a bye on the pro level here, just because that might hurt something down the road. Dream opponent. Other than Shinsuke Nakamura, we were talking about Shinsuke. If you had, now that was alive, right? I said alive.
Yeah.
So I want you to go to any wrestler who is no longer with us. I think I know what he's going to say.
Yeah,
I'm going to see if I'm right.
You're probably right about this because I feel like this is hypocritical, or not even hypocritical. I just feel like this is too soon to be saying, but it would have to be Bray Wyatt. It's just because.
Not where I thought he was going, but Bray was one of them.
No, Bray Wyatt just had that atmosphere about him, but now if I really wanted to sit there and have a match to where it can make, well, I feel like it can make money, I don't think he's alive. He might still be alive. Is Mr. Perfect still alive? That's a question because Face Perfection, Mr. Perfect. I feel like that
would be a good quality match. I think you and Bray are very different, so that is interesting. No.
I'm trying to think of all the wrestlers.
Mr. Perfect died in 2003. Couldn't remember how far back it was.
I was born. Wow. Wow.
You know, I actually, Mr. Perfect makes sense. I actually thought you would have said your dad. Because
I wish.
Because that would just be
I just wanted to go outside the box.
Yeah, but just because I think knowing what I know about you and your family and what you've told me about your dad, that would just be that moment. Because, and again, guys, I'm not trying to make him cry. We're just talking. You have Casey Kazana and Eric and Evan Golden, whose dads still do stuff, or Kerry and Ricky. And their generation stories that are being told. And even though yours is being told well, it would have been nice to have that father-son moment in the ring, I think.
And that's the one. So my oldest brother, Austin, he's the only one out of us that actually got to wrestle my dad. He got the tag with him and also wrestle. Because there was a time where they were tagging and my brother didn't have the contract for that company. My dad was sitting there telling him, come out here and give him a contract. And it turned into, you want him to have a contract? All right, you two against each other. If he beats you, he has your contract. My brother actually beat my dad, so he went over on him.
Wow.
And so while I was sitting in the crowd, all the
talk about a rub right there. I mean,
like all the people that were right next to me were sitting there, like after he won, because my dad said, like, I'll deal with you when I get home. And like they're all sitting like, is he actually going to do something to him? Is he going to actually like I don't know. I'll come back to you guys next month. I don't know what's going to happen. But I do have the privilege to at least say that I have versed Austin and versed my brother Chance on multiple occasions. Now, the good thing is that Chance is still wrestling, and eventually, he's saying that when he gets better gear. So, eventually...
I've been trying to tell Chance to come to SOM.
He wants to get new gear, especially if he's going to be on Fight TV now. So, he's trying to get that new gear stuff process made.
But does he work?
Huh? Yeah, he's got a job.
Well, then he should be able to have money. Dude, what?
And then my brother Austin's talking about coming into it, where he's going to do MMA and also do wrestling.
Hello?
It's just a matter of,
Bring the Gibson brothers. I mean...
You're in a trio, I mean...
So, I'm going to ask you this one thing, too. We're not going to go into a whole lot of stuff with that. Why the last name Gibson? Because that's not your real last name. We're not going to tell you what it is if you don't know. But why Gibson? Was it because of Ricky and Robert?
So, Ricky trained my mom, and Robert trained my dad. And from what I remember, my dad just started taking up from Robert's name and went by Chance Gibson. So, yes, technically it comes from Robert. And I never got around to asking him, because we met him at WrestleCade. I always wanted to ask him before I actually legitimately started my career. But I just kind of went off the fact of my dad wrestled by that, so I could go off that.
And that's Robert. And we know you watch sometimes. This would be a good time. Maybe reach out and tell us a little bit about that. It's families in wrestling are really interesting because most of us that know Robert know about his brother, his real brother, who was going to be wrestling, who got in an accident, right? And so he had people that he had worked with, like your dad, using his name, really kind of, I don't want to say filling that void. Robert's been pretty open about that with that. But to carry on the Gibson name in kind of a different way, I think it's awesome. What now? Your mom, obviously, Brittany Diamond, does not have the Gibson name per se. Not part of the Gibson family. And then your sister is going under Leilani Diamond. Yes, that is taken from Leilani Kai. Rest in peace. For those of you who don't know who Leilani Kai is, you need to do some
research.
Yeah, a little bit of research
Just
there.
Tape study.
No, there's stories. They all go back to Moolah, and that's what we're going to say. That's all there is to it. If there is one thing you can do by the time you're 30, what will that be? In wrestling.
So I'm gonna go off the whole thing of like, oh, I made it big. If there's one thing that I can do in wrestling is all the people that are coming after me. So by the time I'm 30, that's I'm about to be 20 next month. So
almost 11 years, a little over 10 years.
That'd be about 12ish years by the time I'm 30.
Well, if you're 19, about to be 20, that's going to be a little over 10.
Yeah, so I've already been doing it for 2 years now. I started when I was 17.
Kids go to school.
So
he did, but I'm just saying.
So yeah, it's over 10. I would want to be able to inspire the upcoming people that you need to bet on yourself. That's the one thing that I've started really picking up and wanting to emphasize more every time I've stepped in here, stepped in another company, that I can bet on myself and that they can bet on me. I don't want people to sit here and come in and start getting that doubt in and that they can't do it. You put in. I want people to believe in themselves.
So let's wrap with this point: betting on yourself, which is a good place to wrap. Making it to the big times, whether it's NWA, WWE, AEW, New Japan, Impact, one of these bigger groups. Obviously, most people in wrestling want to do that. You're aware of the statistics that probably 1 or 2% of every independent wrestler out there is ever going to get that chance. I know enough about you, and I've told you multiple times that even for a small guy, I think you have a shot where a lot of people don't. Will it ever, if it doesn't happen, will that upset you? Or will you keep living the dream on the indies regardless?
If me trying as much as I am and still constantly pushing forward through it, if I don't ever get to be a big name and big company, if I can be a big name in the Indies to where people can respect me and look up to me, I still say I made it in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, you also got to keep in mind people like L.A. Knight. He didn't really get into the big leagues until recently, and he's older.
And he was grinding. He's told that
Yeah,
story with
over and over again. He kept going. Matt Cardona, who has been in the big leagues, not done so well.
On themselves.
And then what happens? He's out in the Indies making a killing. He's doing fantastic.
He's champion of so many companies.
EC3, someone we both know. EC3 had some chances, had some storyline flaws, had other stuff going on, but he kept, and he did CYN, Control Your Narrative, and he pushed his own narrative, and he pushed himself, NWA World Champion. Long legacy of fantastic champions that EC3 is now a part of, because he wasn't giving up on himself. He was betting on himself. So, guys, bet on Blade Gibson because he's the real thing. He's going to do it. Yes, he's one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet. Yes, I can squash him.
Probably seen everybody else, but I ain't going to stop me from getting back in that ring.
It's because I'm big. I'll just sit on him. It's fine. But
you got to catch me first. I might be small, but that's one thing I do.
Dude, you're right here in this studio. Yeah, and you're trapped. You're not really going anywhere. I win.
Over the table. Everything's leaving.
But check us out, guys. Sundays, we're now on Fight Plus for Revolution. And October 29th is our next big pay-per-view coming up, Fright Night. And we hope you all will check us out. In the meantime, take a look at our website, www.theschoolofmorton.com, and we'll